Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me for episode 141 of the MeepleCore Gaming Podcast. I am your host, Tim Jennette, the Metal Meeple, and in this episode, I talk about Gencon 2021 and much more. That's right, folks, you heard right. I actually was able to make it to Gencon 2021. I know last time that I did the podcast, I said that I was going to take a week off because I was going on my 10-year anniversary trip with the family, and I wasn't going to be making Gencon this year. Well, so to my surprise, some things kind of changed in the very end. See, we were going to drive halfway on Saturday and then halfway on Sunday down, and then the same thing the week after, but the kids were kind of tired and we just wanted to get home. The kids wanted to have like a day of rest, because they were worn out from being on the beach for many days. And I decided, I talked to my wife and I was like, well, it's going to take us like 16 hours to drive, but we can do it in one day. It's just going to be rough. So we did do it in one day. And then I drove another 2 hours on Sunday to get to Indianapolis and attended Gencon for all of Sunday. So that was really interesting. In a span of 48 hours, I think I was driving for about 20 hours of it, which is crazy. Didn't get much sleep, but it's all good because I attended Gencon, which means I can still brag about not really brag. I'm not much of a bragger, but I can still be excited that I haven't ruined my streak of going to Gencon ever since 2003 when it first started in Indianapolis. It's going to be a kind of a shorter podcast right now. All I'm going to do is talk about a few things. Let's start off with some of the stuff I did, not really the family trip stuff, but other things that I did on the trip. Number one, I downloaded Pokemon Quest, which is a little game where all the Pokemon are squares. They're kind of squared off or whatever. And this was kind of interesting because I downloaded it specifically to play with my son, who I guess I randomly downloaded it on his Switch when he first got his Switch, and he finally got around to playing this game, and it's kind of neat. It's kind of like you get 3 Pokemon, and they run around on this map, and then you click one of 2 abilities for each Pokemon. So that's all you're really doing, but there's a little bit of strategy going on. For the most part, you don't need to spend money on this game, although they do put things in the game that you could spend money on theoretically to make things easier, because you will cook food between missions, I guess. Depending on how much food you put in there, it will tell you how many missions you have to do before it's prepared. And all that means is it's cooking food that attracts new Pokemon to your camp, and you're going to get new Pokemon that way. And then all the Pokemon can level up, and when they level up, they unlock kind of like a talent tree type of thing, but there's slots, and you can put, increased damage or health or whatever in these different slots. And they have a different ability. Even if you get the same Pokemon, they'll have like certain abilities that they can have, and you only get 1 or 2 of those. So it's really cool. It's got a lot of replayability. I downloaded it on my phone, been randomly playing it. It's not a game that you really need to just keep playing over and over and over and over and stuff. I find it pretty enjoyable. It's really neat for a free-to-play game. It doesn't require language for the most part. Ironically, my son had accidentally set his in Spanish, and you cannot change it after you first install it. So it's kind of annoying. That's mainly why I started playing the game, specifically so I could read the ability texts on his abilities. But if you play with the character, you can click the abilities and find out what they do. You don't really have to be able to read the text. Although some of them you do, because you're like, click, I don't know what that just did, right? Because their effects, like maybe it'll try to paralyze, but it failed. And maybe you fail 2 or 3 times. You're like, I don't know what this is doing. So it does help to kind of be able to read the text. But the abilities are really all you need. Everything else is pretty much language independent. So that was pretty neat. Another thing I've been playing since the last time we spoke on the podcast is Castlevania has a new entry on the App Store for the iOS. So iPhone and iPad and everything. It's in the Apple Arcade. So if you're a subscriber to Apple Arcade, you'll already have access to this. You just need to download it. And I will say it is fantastic. It is such a good game. I'm really excited about it. It's like more mission based than it is something compared to Symphony of the Night or whatever. It's more like playing through a stage of Castlevania, but at the end you get stuff and, you can craft gear and things like that. So it does have the RPG aspect there, but more of a playthrough like you would a typical Castlevania, like 2D scroller one. And each stage is maybe about 5 minutes. Maybe not even 5 minutes, maybe 3 or 4 minutes long. It's not super long. You fight a boss at the end. So far, it's just that over and over and over. And there's some other things you can do. I'm not that far into it because I think it just got released 3 or 4 days ago now, maybe 4 days. I think it was like Thursday or something. And I've played it, 4 or 5 times since, and I'm really liking it. It's really cool. I love Castlevanias. It's one of my favorite series. I don't really particularly like the 3D ones that were on like the PlayStation 2 and 3 or whatever. They're okay, but I like the side-scrolling aspect of it. And so I'm really excited that they have a Castlevania game that got released, and I didn't have to buy it because I already subscribed to the Apple Arcade. So that was really nice. I knew it was coming. That I saw it on the list, but I just, got really excited whenever it finally just auto downloaded to my phone when I reserved it. So that was really, really awesome. And besides that, I've been playing a lot of Pokemon Go. Obviously, that's what you do when you go on road trips if you play the game, because tons of new areas. You've got Pokestops that you haven't touched before, and you get XP bonuses for doing so for the first time. So got a lot of raids going. Our hotel had access to 3 Pokestops with just laying in bed. That was amazing. And there was a couple of raids around. There was at least 5 gyms that would have raids. And I pretty much did that after the kids went to bed every night. And, after talking to my wife and stuff, kind of interesting because our kids want to lay down with us and stuff. So it's, we're basically just sitting there playing games until they fall asleep, and then we play games. So it was really, really fun. I like the beach. We haven't been back for a while, man. I mean, I've been to the ocean recently, but that place in Treasure Island, Florida, we hadn't been since we got married in 2011. So really, really cool. But I was glad that I could make it back to Gencon. So let's shift focus over to that and talk about some Gencon stuff. First off, I'm going to go through all the games I got, and then I'll tell you some stuff. It's a kind of a small haul this year, obviously, because I was not prepared to go. So I just bought some stuff I saw, got really excited. But I ended up picking up from indie boarding games and Stronghold. I got Magic Money, Profiteers, and Scapegoat. Scapegoat we've talked about on here before. I'm kind of interested in Magic Money, although when they explained it to me, I was thinking, man, I've heard of this game. I'm really excited. But then I realized what they were explaining was actually the game QE, or in my mind, that's the game I was actually thinking about. Very similar rule sets and concept of what you're doing, where you basically have an unlimited amount of money and you're bidding on stuff. And at the end of the game, whoever has the most money spent actually gets eliminated. And then everybody adds up victory points from the cards you purchase throughout the game. I'm interested to see how this goes because it plays up to 6 and there's only 10 rounds. So only 10 cards. I haven't actually read the rules fully, but from my understanding, only 10 cards actually get auctioned off throughout the game, 1 per round. And with 6 players, that would seem like, a couple of people might get 1 or 2 cards. So it just, I don't know. I don't know if I really like that or not. We'll see. I did end up picking Fantasy Realms up. They did not have the expansion. It was sold out by the time I got to it, obviously because it was Sunday. I bought Kabuto Sumo, which is like a coin pusher kind of arena combat game for kids, younger kids. I mean, they have rules for juniors and for like adults and everything, but basically you have this circle that stands up a couple inches off the ground and you put this little platform on whatever side of the circle you want, and you're pushing a coin that represents, whatever piece or whatever off of your push pad onto the main circle. And obviously the chain reaction of it pushing of the other discs, stuff will fall off and you get to keep it. And I believe you win if you knock the other quote unquote wrestlers, I guess these little Kabuto beetle guys, if you knock them out of the arena, they're out. And you got special abilities that you use the pieces you're knocking off because they're different shapes. You can use those to activate special abilities and stuff. Looks pretty cool. I bought that in the expansion. Eric got a bunch of games from Envoy Double Exposure stuff. He was teaching some games, and he actually gave me Dungeon Academy, which is a game that I've been wanting to get so many times now. So that was really, really cool of him. I really appreciate it. He also gave me Trails in Zombie Chase Get Flipped. Both of those are like Play Monster games they gave out to like all the people doing Envoy, but they're kids games. So he gave those to me as well to try to play them with my kids and see how that goes. Furnace was a pretty popular game from Arcane Wonders. I did purchase that from them. It looks really cool. I'm very excited. It definitely seems like it's up my alley. It's kind of an engine builder game. The presentation kind of looks like Century Spice Road in a way where, you know, I don't think it plays anything like that, or maybe it does. We'll see. I did finally pick up the expansion to Role Player, Friends and Familiars, in the big box so that I could put everything together, and I am so excited. Oh man, I can't wait to play this in its entirety. Like everything in the game, bam, all at one time. Really, really cool. They had these, I don't remember what they're called, I don't remember the word, but basically they printed cards and they have the plastic on them to where you can tilt the card and the artwork shifts. You know, like it has like five pieces of art, and when you shift it, you can see it, kind of like an animation type of thing. It starts with an L, but the word eludes me now. But they have new bosses that are all those cards, and they look fantastic. They're so cool looking, and I'm excited to put those on the table because, I mean, you just look at them and you move your head, and they animate like the dragon, you know, flaps its wings and whatever, and the Leviathan or the Kraken's like grabbing the ship. Really, really neat. I think that's such a cool promo idea. Or it's not really promo. I mean, there were $10 for the 20 of them or something. But here's the thing. All the bosses have new abilities on them, but they still use all the other boss pieces from the main game. So it's really cool to bling out your game, but then also not get rid of any components, because the old bosses, you know, the other variants of them are still usable, and these just look cool. I think that is fantastic. I really would love to see more companies do that, where they come out with bling, but it doesn't replace the stuff. Like, I know a lot of companies come out like foil printed cards or, you know, gold embossed cards and such. That's neat, but I almost don't want to buy, if it's a Kickstarter kind of stretch goal, that's one thing, but I don't want to buy those cards to replace the components it already came with. It doesn't really do much for me. It's a little bit different with like metal coins and stuff like that, but the actual cards where they have abilities and things, that is a really fun idea. If you're going to bling out your components, then, you know, give them another reason to something else that it provides to the game. I just thought that was awesome. Super, super cool way to do things. But anyway, moving on, I got all the expansions to Shards of Infinity. I've been wanting to pick these up for a while, and I just asked Ultra Pro, I was like, hey, bundle? And they're like, yeah, that's cool. They took $10 off, and the prices were already low. So I got them all for $30, which I thought was really good. It's like $10 a piece. There's 3 of them. And I've already sleeved them, put them all together. Really excited. I've only played the base game of Shards of Infinity a bunch of times, actually, but I'm looking forward to adding the expansions. They don't add a whole lot. If you haven't heard of this one, it's basically a futuristic version of Ascension, and that's it. I mean, there's cards in the middle. You play it just like Ascension, except there's 2 different ways to win, and you can buy cards in the middle that, you know, instead of putting them into your deck and getting them as they come out. One of the cool things is that I think they're called mercenaries, but you can buy them and they get discarded, but you do the ability right then. So it gives you a way to like get rid of extra income throughout each turn that you can't just buy a full card for, or don't want to, you know, thicken your deck with extra cards that aren't going to help you in the long run. Really cool idea. They also, one of the expansions comes out with like these player cards that make each character kind of unique, because it costs so much to build one, but you only get to build one of the 2. and each character has a set of 2 cards. So that was really cool. And obviously every expansion comes with extra cards for the game, but there is one expansion that has a co-op mode where you fight against the game. And there's this battle book that has a choose your own adventure style thing where you make a decision, you go to a certain page and make a decision, go to a certain page, fight a specific boss or whatever, get some rewards, and you build your deck that way. That is really cool. Seems like you probably couldn't play it that many times, once you know the outcome, and you're just playing through the story again, but seems really neat. I'm very excited about it. And one of the other expansions adds these relics, which I don't know a lot about those, but seems really cool. Navu Games actually gave me a review copy of Pinpoint. This is their new party game that they're pushing. And this is, it's got 3 party games in one, which normally I'm kind of like, well, I don't know about that. But the 3 party games it has are kind of like really neat to put into one box. And it's a smaller box and you just kind of bring it with you. So I'm really excited. We're going to play this tonight, actually. And, yeah, hopefully it goes really well. I enjoyed playing the demo of it or having them teach it to me while I was at Gencon. And so I'm really excited to try it out and, give you my thoughts in a review, which I might actually do on the Dice Tower as well. Now that I'm starting to do more reviews on the Dice Tower again. Other than that, I got a bunch of promos for stuff and, some, random swag things. Always nice to get the GTM, Game Trade Magazine and, the promos it had. So other than that, let's talk about some things at Gen Con that I was excited to. Number one, it was much smaller of a convention. Obviously, the vendor hall typically will take you in the past, at least the past 5 years or so, since it's been, the maximum size. Cause I think the maximum size is 70,000 attendees. And so the vendor hall is like the biggest it's ever been. Not this year, obviously. I'm talking about a couple of years ago. And I can go through the vendor hall in the amount of time. It opens at 10, closes at 6. I can hit that on Thursday and get 80% of, all the rows and columns of the vendor hall. And then I finish it up on Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday is kind of like, well, Saturday's like looking around, finding other stuff, maybe things I've passed up or thought about later on to go back and get. And then Sunday is like deal day where you go and haggle with people and things like that. But this year it was much smaller. The attendance was capped at, I think, 35,000, if I remember correctly. I don't think they actually hit that. I think they probably hit about 30 or maybe a little bit less, but the vendor area was shrunk to where it still felt kind of busy, but nowhere near as it's ever been in the past. It seems like a bigger Origins at this point, because Origins has about 21,000 attendees. It's a little bit bigger than that. It was pretty cool. I would prefer it to be back the way it was. I know a lot of people disagree with me, but I feel like Gen Con is definitely a consumer convention, and that's what people do when they go there. And having a lot more vendors and everything just makes it even that much cooler. When I want to play games, I go to different conventions. I don't consider myself going to Gen Con just to play games. If you want to do that, that's cool. But for me, I really was, it was cool that they at least had it this year and not just canceled it. But it was a neat change of pace. It really felt like Gen Con 2006, maybe 2005, minus having Wizards of the Coast being so massive in presence, because Wizards of the Coast had this massive booth around that time frame, and they had 15 games all at one time and a live D&D area where you walk around and do live action role playing and stuff. It was a spectacle. Wizards of the Coast was amazing back then. I mean, they have the presence there, obviously, because they have the whole play area for Magic and all that stuff. But on the vendor floor back in the early, mid 2000s, that was sick. It was awesome. So if you take that away, that's kind of how Gen Con felt this year. And that's fine. I mean, nothing wrong with that. It's neat to talk to the different publishers because apparently they sold games so well this year that people are just like, man, we don't know if we're going to have the stock for Origins. So keep that in mind, that some of your publishers may not have the game that you're looking for when you go to Origins because they actually sold out at Gen Con or did, really well at Gen Con and may not have as many copies. But that's because normally there's like 300 to 500 or 700 games, depending on the year, that's released at Gen Con. This year, as far as being able to purchase them, I think that the preview page on BGG actually showed about 175. And that was actually kind of overshooting, I think, because some of the publishers did not make it to Gen Con, even though they had booth space. So some of those games I think are dropped off, or maybe they didn't get their game in time, so they're just demos. So that's a very little amount of competition for these publishers with their new games. And I think that it really helped the publishers that were there. And I believe it's going to also help them at Origins as well, even though Origins typically doesn't have a massive release because they all wait for Gen Con a few months later. But it's different now because Origins is 2 weeks after Gen Con. So I don't really think anything new's coming out at Origins, or at least that I didn't see, but maybe there is. Either way, I think it's going to be a lot of the same stuff from Origins, or at Origins from Gen Con's releases. And that's fine. It's just neat to see these publishers do so well on games that maybe they wouldn't have done well otherwise if some of these bigger companies like Asmodee and things like that were there in full form pushing a large release. You know, Unfathomable came out. I mean, it's been out, I think, I can't remember. I don't think it released at Gen Con, but they did have some copies there, but I don't think it was Fantasy Flight. It was actually a different company that bought a lot of their stock. I don't know if it was consignment or what, but it's really, really interesting. It was a different con. I missed the fact that Kingdom Death Monster was not there. That was pretty sad because I was looking forward to buying another t-shirt or picking up some expansions. Otherwise, you know, it was pretty chill. I mean, I ran around and bought some things, and I didn't really demo a whole lot. I mean, I did some actual demos, but I didn't sit down and play any full-length games or anything. Not that I really do a lot of that at Gen Con anyway. But we demoed some stuff. There is one thing that I will mention. New to the addition of the vendor space this year was eBay. And I thought that was going to be cool, but eBay did something that really did it. I'm not a big fan of this. And actually, I'm going to call eBay out and call them really shady because they had some Pokemon cards that they had printed as promos for the convention. Like one of them was like a Post Malone Charizard. I don't remember what it's. Let's see. Post Malone Charizard and some other promos. And I'm not joking when I say this. They gave them out, and there was a dude buying them from people for $100 just instantly. And if you go to eBay, there's literally copy after copy. There's maybe 30 just on this page that I see. And they're anywhere between $190 to $350. And I'll tell you the reason why I'm not a big fan of this. When a company comes in and they make before I tell you that, let's go to sold items and see if any's sold. Right. All right. That one sold for $150. That one sold for $130, but it said best offer. I accept it. So who knows how far down it went. There's a TX Post Malone Charizard Gen Con eBay 2021. They listed it for $1,675. Obviously, it said best offer accepted. Who knows what it actually went for? There was even these Magic Post Malone tokens that you can buy. I mean, it's just a card, but it's a token for Magic the Gathering. You know, like here's a zombie, but it's Post Malone. $150. You know, this one was $100. These are all sold. Most of them looks like they're probably about, I would say, between $150 to $200. Here's the reason why I have a problem with that. If a company brings in promos and they pass them out, these people might take these promos and put them on eBay and sell them, and eBay will get a cut. But here's the difference. If I get promos from Privateer Press, or not even Privateer Press, but from like Thunderworks Games for Role Player or whatever, and I sell these for $15 a piece, they don't see any of that money. So my point is, they don't have an incentive to hand out promos because you're going to basically spend money to buy them from the company or whatever. eBay gets promos created, passes them all out, and then every one of these promos goes back on eBay, and then eBay gets their cut out of it. So not only do they probably make their money back for the cards, you know, production or whatever, licensing and such, but they probably make bank from it either way. And that's really shady to me. I don't think that's really cool. And as a matter of fact, you know, unless somebody tells me otherwise, I really wish eBay would just stay out of Gen Con. Like, don't bring that crap to a convention. you lose credibility like that. Here's a bunch of stuff. Come sell it on our website because now it's special and rare. And they only gave out like 25 of each day or something like that. So there's not that many of them, but it did even more sound scammy because you're doing a lower print run and having people even freak out even more because there's only 100 of them or only 150 of them or whatever. There's not like 5,000 that, you know, companies will typically make or whatever. Maybe not 5,000, but even 500, you know, that's a huge difference. Maybe they're going to give this promo out other conventions and things like that, but it was really shady. I was not a big fan of that. And that really just turned me off to eBay being there as a company. And on top of that, here's the stuff they brought to the convention. Basically, they had a bunch of glass cases with a lot of expensive cards in it. And then the only cool thing that I can say is they had this thing that you walked up to and it took a picture of you. And then you will get a printout that you get to keep. And then a small little 2x2 sticker that you put on this board. And it makes this collage that ends up being like this huge red dragon that's made up of a lot of people from Gencon attending and putting their sticker on the board. That was neat, but it just seems really shady. I don't know. Not really shady, but it just seems, you know, cheesy. The promo cards though, man, really upsets me. I think that's really cheesy to print something, you know, that would be like, I don't know how to give it an example, but it's just really crappy that a company that knows really expensive cards, i.e. Pokemon, are going to go back onto their site and they're going to make 15% off of it or whatever. And so they print a really crazy Pokemon person, you know, Post Malone, who talks about, I guess he plays Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff like that, but I don't know if he actually plays Pokemon. He's a huge artist, and then they use him and his likeness and stuff on a card that's official Pokemon cards and stuff and get it printed in low quantities. And they know this stuff is going to go back on eBay because a lot of Pokemon cards are sold on eBay. That is just really shady dealing to me. I think that's disingenuous to a degree. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Check it out. Get on Instagram. I'm going to make a post about it. You can reply back to that on MeepleCore or just send an email to meeplecore@gmail.com or, you know, anything, anywhere on our social media. Just let me, you know, send a message and I'll get it either way. So I'd really like to see your all's thoughts on that. If you think that's shady or if you like, you know, that's just business, obviously blah, 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 capitalism. But I just feel like it was thought about. They knew this was going to happen. They knew all that money was going to come back. It's like, why don't we just print so many of them and then we're just going to make all our money back and a bunch of extra money off the commissions and bam, we're not out anything. Anyway, we're going to move on because it irritates me. It wouldn't be so bad if eBay has been there for 10 years or whatever, but like you come in through the door and it's like, check out this. No, I'm not that impressed. Sorry, eBay. I like your site and I don't know. It just really rubbed me the wrong way. Other than that, yeah, it was a pretty neat convention. I looked at the board game tables and got really sad because they're expensive. I have a really good board game table anyway, not an actual board gaming table, but it's like a dining room table that works perfectly. I've got a really big mat on it. It works great, but some of these are so luxurious that your mind wanders a little bit. Can I buy that? Maybe. Starts at 10 grand. All right, I'm out. Never mind. And, you know, Chip Theory had its booth. That was always a fun thing to go to and look at all the giant boxes of tokens that it has. And, trying to make sure I didn't miss anything. I took a picture of Mario and Luigi. That was kind of cool. I'm looking at my pictures here just to make sure I didn't miss anything. There was a new miniatures game coming out called Conquest. At least it was new to me. I don't know how long it's been in production or been at these conventions, but kind of looks neat. I don't like movement tray games though, where you put a bunch of miniatures on a movement tray and kind of push it instead. So I don't know. That looked okay. There was a game, I think it's called Snap Ships, which was really kind of neat. I wish my son was a little bit older. Because I think he would like it, but basically you build these big spaceships that are probably like 6 or 7 inches big. They're huge. It would be like playing, I guess, something like X-Wing or Armada, but you have one giant ship and it's snapped together with all these different pieces. So you can customize your ship however you want. seems like a toy, but it really cool stuff. And the cards and everything, I don't know. I'm going to have to check into it. I didn't really want to just invest into it, but it really kind of reminds me of like an X-Wing-ish game with a lot of customization. So that was kind of neat. Got to see our friends at Smirk and Dagger. They got their new game. I think the Kickstarter might be over now, but it's for Spill. It's a co-op game. Does not have a backstabbing mechanic, which is fine. But I was talking to Kurt about that. It was really funny. And but it looks pretty neat. I'm really excited about that. I'm more excited about the Night Cage, mostly because, you know, I'm not a huge co-op gamer unless it's like a dungeon crawl, something like, Kingdom Death. But the Night Cage, obviously we've talked about it before. Check that one out. Really good, doing really good for them. So I'm really excited. We saw this game coming to Kickstarter. It's called Steam Up, which kind of looks neat. It's got a bunch of these little, I guess 3D printed baskets that you put. It's like an Asian meal, Chinese meal or whatever it is. And all the different components are in these different little cups, and you have actions that you're moving them around, and you have these orders that I guess that you're trying to pick up these little steamers with. But you have to have the right components in them. It looks kind of neat. I actually was really excited about it. I wasn't at first, and then they showed us the game, and as they were explaining it, I kind of got won over. So I guess the only other thing I'll mention is we did check out Picture Perfect by Arcane Wonders. Eric did play this. I sat there and watched him play the whole game, basically. But basically, you have this arrangement of people, like these standees. I think you got 21 of them or something. There's a bunch of them. Maybe it's 12. I don't know. And there's this little table, and you got all these different cards that says, this guy wants to be next to this person, but in the third row. And then this guy has a card that says he doesn't want to be seen by anybody, and he wants to be next to the table, and a lot of that stuff. And then everybody has these. And then on the main board in the middle, there's like communal ones that you have to abide by as well. And the whole point of the game is you're trying to see how many points you can score by setting up the arrangement of people to where they meet all their goals. And then you take your camera and you move your camera around to get the shot, because one dude doesn't want to be seen. So you want him to be hidden, or you don't want him, this character doesn't want to be seen by, I don't know, any female person or something. And so you got to make sure that their back is turned or whatever. But the point is, you take a picture with your phone and then you score it based on the picture, which means you're based on the angle that you took the picture, and you compare that to all the scoring mechanics of all the different packets of cards, and you get points based on that. Seems really neat. They sold the last copy while Eric was playing it. So I was kind of thinking it was more partyish, and I'm actually starting to really think that I might pick this one up. I thought it was going to be more like party, kind of haphazard, laugh and stuff like that. But it's more strategy than I thought it was, even though as a kind of a family weight game, it's not super deep, but what you're trying to do and the puzzle behind it is kind of hard, because there's a lot of things to think about. Well, this guy can't go here because now this doesn't work, etc. And I might actually pick that up going to Origins if they have any more copies. We'll see. Anyway, it was good to see all my convention friends that I hadn't seen in a couple of years. So that was really, really fun. I'm super excited that I got to go to Gencon, and I'm looking forward to going to Origins. So if you're going to be at Origins, definitely shoot us a message or whatever. Eric and I will be there. And yeah, I mean, we don't have a lot planned, but we do have some stuff. We're going to work with Envoy Double Exposure to teach some games. But other than that, I'm just going to run around and maybe film some stuff. And I'm planning on this. I'm planning on taking 5 or 6 questions and randomly picking people out and see if they want to answer them. Like, what's your favorite game of the con, or what's the favorite thing you've done so far, or whatever? How do you feel about the convention, etc. And I'm going to stitch those together in videos and upload them while I'm at the convention. So if you see me and I have a microphone, or if not, say hi. But if I have a microphone and you want to be on camera, let me know. And I'll ask you those questions. That'll be pretty cool. But anyway, I think I'm going to wrap this one up. And next week, we'll talk about some other games. I will record a podcast episode before going to Origins. We leave Wednesday night, so maybe another one will pop up on Wednesday before I go. And who knows, maybe we'll record a podcast and get Eric on there at the con. So that'd be kind of neat. Anyway, I want to thank you again for tuning into episode 141 of the MeepleCore Gaming Podcast. This episode was recorded on September 24th, 2021. Please send your questions and comments to MeepleCore@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and check out video versions of the show on YouTube. Till next time, this is Tim Jennette, the Metal Meeple. Keep on rocking and rolling dice.